My name is Gwen Shamblin, and I humbly thank you for watching this short video, and I assure you that I would not want to waste your precious time.
Our God is an awesome God, He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am Jen and this is Fundy Fridays, and here on my channel I talk about different aspects of Christian fundamentalism, American conservative politics, makeup, gay stuff, just everything you could ever want in a YouTube channel, really. And today I am completely redoing my Gwen Shamblin video because, I mean, shit, I don't know if you've been living under a rock, but she died and there's like a power vacuum at her cult, so kind of need to update that, as well as there was a little bit of inaccurate information, some information that was alleged, so I would like to just go ahead and fix that. Plus I got, you know, a nice camera and I look sickening, so why not? I know a lot about Gwen Shamblin. Probably too much. And while I'm not going to cover every single detail and every single member, every single high profile leader of Remnant, I'm mostly going to be focusing on Gwen. This video I worked really hard on, and I did a lot of research, and I found a lot of clips that were really hard to find, and I am really proud of this episode, so I hope you guys like it. It's my magnum opus, it's my Viewsicle, which is a joke that you'll understand later in the video. Today's episode is about the late Gwen Shamblin, who started her own girl boss cult in the 90s, and since that time has faced enormous scrutiny for her bizarre religious beliefs, recommendations of child abuse, and toxic culture of emotional restraint and relational bullying. Gwen accomplished all of this and more before plummeting to her death in 2021 in a plane piloted by a former party boy turned one-time Tarzan actor, Gwen's late husband, Joe Lora. You can think of Gwen Shamblin as your toxic handful of almonds mom who went through religious delusions of grandeur. And if all this sounds like a lot, that's because it is. I know it's repetitive, but I just wanted to warn you guys 50 million times before, because I just can't stand the thought of somebody suffering or going through a relapse because they watched my video. It's okay to sit this one out. The first time I ever started reading Way Down Workshop and started researching the video, I started having those really bad, intrusive, awful thoughts about myself and about eating, so I completely understand if you can't do this. I just wanted to warn you guys because it is very heavy subject matter, and I honestly don't see a lot of content warnings when people talk about Gwen Shamblin, and they really need to be putting them on there, because I cannot stress how horrifying this woman's views are and how dangerous they are. If you've ever struggled with any sort of disordered eating, you know how quickly it can go from 0 to 100. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be brave and watch this video. We're going to be talking about some hardcore stuff, as well as lots of child abuse, and Gwen Shamblin talks about the Holocaust like constantly. It's like every other story. So those are all the trigger warnings. Please be careful if you choose to watch this video, because it is going to be pretty fucked up. And I also want to give special thanks before we get going, because I often forget. First of all, I want to thank Phil Williams, who is the OG investigator of Remnant Fellowship all the way back in the late 90s, early 2000s, from Channel 5 in Nashville. I mean, I don't know the guy, but I pretty much used every single bit of footage that he ever got of Gwen Shamblin. I also want to thank Not the Good Girl, who made a really good video about Gwen Shamblin. I actually met her at Walmart. She's really cool. Please check her out. And then I also accidentally found this person while I was researching for this video, and that would be dietitian Kat Benson on the channel Unlock Nutrition. She made a really good video about actual health effects of the Way Down Workshop diet, and it's a really good video. And then probably the main reason why I'm even making this video would be the Way Down, which is the documentary about Gwen Shamblin. And I did happen to talk to Niall Capello, who is one of the producers and main investigative journalists for the project. Way Down and Remnant and Gwen and all of the side people. They talked to a lot of ex-members, people who have lost loved ones to this cult, metaphorically and physically. They talk to a couple of people who are ex-spouses of remnant members, and just, they get really into it because it allegedly, these remnant lawyers are trying to scoop up as much property and children as they can. Let's just say, let's fucking do it. Let's go. Let's get into it. All right. So I just now looked up on Wikipedia, like, what Gwen's middle name and maiden name was, and they don't have it. I don't know. I'm assuming her middle name is Skinny. Gwen Skinny Shamblin. I know for a fact that she would find that hilarious, so I'm going to stick with it. She was born February 18th, 1955, and she was born and raised in Tennessee.
And she said, yeah, I'm from Tennessee.
Her father was Walter Henley, and apparently he was a doctor or a surgeon. And I even have here in my notes, it says, to be fair, I don't really have room in my brain to look up which one. And I don't care. Her dad was some sort of medical man, and she seemed to care about him fondly, but not fondly enough to tell me how he died. Gwen was raised in the Church of Christ, which I don't know too much about that denomination. Apparently it's pretty hardcore. They are very strict about not letting women be leaders in the church. And you can actually see how that rule affected Gwen all the way in her later years. I'm going to show you a clip from the 2019 deposition of the custody case with Joe. And in this clip, she won't even call herself a pastor. She just keeps saying, I'm Gwen. That's my role. I'm Gwen.
What is your position with Remnant Fellowship?
I am one of the leaders, and
Do you have any kind of official title with the church?
I'm Gwen. So we don't really use pastor, preacher, and all that, but they would say, I guess if someone asked you, they would say I'm the teacher or teacher on Sunday morning, responsible for most of that, even though other people speak too.
Do you consider yourself to be a pastor, though?
Well, you know, coming from the direction I came from, wanting to be a registered dietitian and teaching nutrition, and then find myself in this, honestly, my background, Church of Christ, being a female, I have tried to resist any title but Gwen.
Okay.
And I mean,
well, you're not an ordained minister, correct?
correct. Ordained by the people there. In that sense, they see, you know, the people, you know, would see me as qualified, put it that way.
Well, you didn't go to seminary, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. To your knowledge.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit too far. Let's rewind and get back to a time in Gwen's life where she didn't look like one of Roger Smith's personas gone completely wrong. So I read the original Way Down Workshop book, the one from 1997. There was all kinds of disturbing shit in there. In this book, she kind of gives her own little biography, and by that I mean she talks nonstop about her body issues. She calls herself horrible insults, and she describes, like, at length all of the flaws that she thinks she has. She's just really nasty about it, and it's honestly very triggering. That is a very prominent part of her story. If she didn't hate herself, I don't think Way Down Workshop would ever exist. And if you're a human being that inhabits a physical form, then you've probably gone through times where you also have had body image issues and where you started obsessing over all of the details that you didn't like. Except Gwen believed that those things were objectively fact. And in the book, she says that she would go through binging and purging cycles. So I can't imagine how she would have ever gotten the idea for Way Down Workshop, a program where you essentially starve yourself. And in her book, she brings this up several times, and she also brings it up in interviews. She likes to say that she was only ever 20 pounds overweight.
Gwen, who's never been more than 20 pounds overweight herself, tells followers that overeating stems from a deeper problem.
And in her book, she even says, my body has very little muscle mass, and what little I have is not exercised much, so I need less food than most adults. I know. I am content with a small amount of food.
Here's Skinny.
She also talks about in the book how she felt like she was always more hungry than other people and that she lacked self-control and that she was she literally says she was a slave to overweight. It is not a sin to be hungry. You are not greedy for wanting food. And this woman is a lunatic. Do not listen to anything that she says. Being fat is morally neutral, and beauty standards are made up by society. Gwen went to high school in the 70s, and apparently she was a cheerleader. I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that she was probably a flyer and not a thrower. Gwen then went on to earn an undergraduate degree in dietetics and a master's degree in food and nutrition with an emphasis in biochemistry from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And all I'm going to say about that one is that just because somebody says they have certain credentials doesn't always mean they're telling the truth. For example, as your volume of food goes down, so will the excretion level. It is normal to go to the bathroom less frequently. Bran cereals in small amounts with plenty of fluids will alleviate true constipation. Contrary to what you have heard, roughage from vegetables has not proven to help with constipation and has been known to cause discomfort. It was around this time that Gwen started working on the program that would become Weigh Down Workshop. Despite some experts expressing concern that the program eliminated exercise and guidance on food selection as recommended by the American Dietetic Association, Laura developed Weigh Down Workshop while working on her master's degree at Memphis State University. As part of a counseling center, Laura hosted the first class in a mall in Memphis, Tennessee. The program was offered as small classes in retail and non-religious settings at first. She began hosting the program at Bellevue Baptist Church near Memphis in the 90s. The program consisted of 12-week seminars guided by video and audio tapes featuring Laura. The program was offered in about 600 churches in 35 states by 1994. The program was in more than 1,000 churches in 49 states, Great Britain, and Canada by January 1995. The program had grown to about 5,000 churches, with about 10% located in Laura's home state of Tennessee by July 1996. About 8 churches in Britain were hosting workshops in December 1996, and some participants in the U.S. hosted meetings in their homes. In 1996, Weigh Down Workshop had a staff of 40 and built a headquarters in Franklin, Tennessee, and Laura began hosting an annual seminar convention, Desert Oasis, in the Nashville area. Weigh Down Workshop hosted more than 21,000 classes with more than 250,000 participants worldwide by August 1998. Classes were hosted in every U.S. state and in Canada and Europe. Weigh Down Workshop eventually got so big that Gwen couldn't even go to all these seminars, and many people enjoyed her programming on videotape and DVD. And if you were wondering where the name Weigh Down Workshop came from, well, it's actually a pun created by Gwen's husband.
Who came up with the idea of Weigh Down, W-E-I-G-H?
My husband.
He said that's a good name.
We were throwing out. Now, it probably is a silly name in terms of length, and no one can spell it. They don't know how to spell W-A-Y, or is it W-E-I-G? It's a play on words. What it meant to me, was the way to get your weight off. It was the way to get down and on anything, actually, as far as drugs or other things that we
We'll get into
touch
all
on.
of that.
And would you believe me that interview actually gets weirder?
Were you fat?
Oh, I wasn't I knew no end to fullness, but I was only about 20 pounds heavier than you see me because I exercised like a fiend and I never could throw it up, but I tried. And
So much happened in like 10 seconds in that clip. I think I have whiplash. Gwen definitely had early detractors even back then. Many people were saying that, this was all for money. This had nothing to do with religion. Even the people that worked at her call center started to think that it was getting sketchy. Cardente, a person who used to work the phones at Weigh Down Workshop, said, "I was instructed that this indeed was a business, that there was a product here that was to be marketed, and the churches were basically our outlet. Behind the scenes, the first priority was helping customers lighten their wallets. My first recommendation to you calling in, if it was your first time or your 100th time, was, do you have her latest book? Do you have these products?" Shamblin insists she doesn't worry about sales, but her magazine as well as her website push a wide variety of products that followers can buy. Videos, CDs, shirts, even keychains. "Because I believe in my products," Shamblin explains, "I believe that I can say it better than the next person. And when you do, there's nothing wrong with that." She also got sued by several former employees because she was trying to force them to go to Remnant. That lawsuit eventually settled, but I'll never forget. Basically, the owner of Way Down Workshop established her own church and imposed religious tests upon the people who worked there, Blackburn told the Baptist Press. That's discrimination based upon religious preference, and you don't see these kinds of cases very often. Cardente maintained she was fired for praying on the job. I used my lunch hour to pray, and I was told by Gwen Shamblin that she pays people good money to pray, and she didn't need my prayers, and it wasn't my place to decide what to pray for. Gwen would tell us that grace isn't the message of God and that she is a prophet, Cardente said. She said the Antichrist resides within each of us.
Year 2000, when Gwen Shamblin decided to start the Remnant Fellowship, she had employees who were working for her at the Way Down Workshop who were members of all sorts of churches. And according to them, there started to be pressure to say, you need to leave your church and become part of my church. So there were 5 women who sued because of being discharged for not practicing the Remnant Fellowship faith. And so as part of that, there was a substantial amount of discovery where Gwen Shamblin was forced to give testimony under oath. Some of that testimony what was contrary to some of her public statements. And for example, she had gone on to Larry King Live's show on CNN, and someone had called in and accused her of just being a money-grubbing person. And she said, absolutely not. Half of this money goes to the government, the other half goes to keep the program going. And so I sat down with her in 2000 and said, wait a second, half and half leaves nothing to Gwen Shamblin. That's not completely true, is it? And her response is, that is completely true. Cut to, I solemnly swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. And she admitted under oath that this was indeed a for-profit enterprise that she and her husband profited from.
But that she was claiming very much was a ministry.
Correct. It was a ministry, but it still made her very wealthy.
Yes, indeed. You showed her extravagant home, brought up the car she drove, that sort of thing.
Not only were people mad that Gwen was being a greedy capitalist pig dog, but they were mad because she kept making references to the Holocaust.
But over and over in various places, you have said you based it on the Holocaust, that when the Jewish people ate less food, they all lost weight.
I just use that as one among many sources of,
do you
of
think
teaching
that's,
people.
Do you think that's a realistic source of understanding about Americans' weight loss problems?
I'm not talking about the Holocaust. That was a tremendous, no. I've mentioned that as an example of a prison camp. I'm not talking about that. That was a terrible scene of great crime. That's not, the point is in a situation where mankind, in any situation where mankind does not get the food it needs and is in a situation where they cannot access the food that they want or their own pantry, that you might see people lose weight.
But you have used the example of the Holocaust over and over again.
Let's move beyond that. I haven't.
Your attorney doesn't want you to answer that question?
Actually, I just answered it 3 times.
She's answered it 3 times, so let's wrap it up.
Do you have any...
This is not true that I've used Holocaust over and over. Has somebody told you that? I've not, so let's just move on.
It's not true?
That's not true.
And if I have videotapes of you using it, it's not true?
No, I have used it. I've absolutely used it. But do I use it over and over? As an example, I use any prison camps. Is there something wrong with that? I mean, I don't think so. I think I would use an example of a prison camp where you can see that people have actually eaten less food, they do lose weight. And I don't mean it to be uncompassionate or to be misleading that there's anything other than if you do put someone in a prison situation where they cannot access Papa John's or the food that they want, that the body will lose weight. And though that example was used in nutrition books from my studies at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
Do you have any idea what the Jewish victims of the Holocaust endured?
Oh, just awful, just awful. just terrible. I mean, you know, that's, you know, just an awful scene. Yes, I do.
And yet you still think it's appropriate to use to push your weight loss plan?
Okay, that's enough. I think. Do you have any concluding questions about anything else that you'd like to ask Ms. Shamblin today?
Do you think it's appropriate to use the Holocaust?
Besides that issue, do you have any questions?
Your attorney apparently doesn't want you to answer this question.
She's answered the question about half a dozen times.
Do you think it's appropriate for you to use the Holocaust
I believe
to
that
promote your weight loss plan?
I can give you.
She's never used.
I can give you nutrition books that have to use it. They do. You've got to understand in studies, in nutrition studies, any kind of deprivation series.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's go.
You don't need to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, it's just cheap. Yeah.
So this next quote, I'm just going to read it to you, but I looked far and wide, could not find a video clip of her saying this. She allegedly said this on Larry King, which I did watch all 5 parts of the Larry King interview, which was, get this, from the Way Down Workshop YouTube page. So I think they cut this part out because I scoured the News Channel 5 in Nashville website, and I even found this article that they had that had every single interview with like a little summary under it, and even they didn't have the video of her saying this next quote. People keep referencing it. So every time I would type in the quote, I would just get references to references. So anyway, I'm going to read this quote to you. How in the Holocaust did you have all these people getting down real skinny? They ate less food. Multiple people gave her several chances to like say sorry and or clarify and be like, oh, I actually meant this. And she just kept making it worse.
When people were in prison camps and ate less food, they lost weight. All of them.
Shamblin, surely you're not making a comparison between the forced starvation of a population and middle-class Americans' eating habits? Are you honestly doing that?
I have been for 15 years, and a lot of people have responded.
I completely believe that she is saying this shit behind the scenes all the time, because how else would it be slipping out so casually? Because I'm going to read you another interview where her ex-employees were saying that she was saying this shit to them. Why? Gwen went on to say that there were survivors of the Holocaust who got out of there alive, not having barely any food at all, says a former employee, Tanya Cardente. She says Shamblin frequently pointed to the Nazi genocide of the Jews and saw justification for her diet plan. Clearly you can survive on a whole lot less than you think. Look at the Holocaust victims. Man, fuck this bitch. All right, so now I suppose I will talk about this damn book and what Way Down Workshop is. So the entire premise of the program, which is very expensive, is that you replace an addiction to food, which is we're already off on a bad start there, with a addiction to God. I know. And the whole time she is shaming the reader and making them feel guilty about, you know, basic human fucking vital functions such as eating food. And it's awful. It just reads like the ramblings of a starving mad woman who is projecting her body images onto an entire compound's worth of acolytes. And since society is so fat phobic and so obsessed with diet culture that her teachings are often miscategorized as intuitive eating. And I'm telling you, saying that you can't eat until you reach God's hunger point is not intuitive eating.
When you decide, I'm going to eat, but you're not at God's hunger point, you've listened to Satan.
I'm not going to show you too much of the book because it's, like I said, extremely triggering. And she gives lots of advice that I would not be giving out. So instead, I'm going to make fun of all these fucked up graphics that were in the book. First of all, this one is the road of sin and guilt. And as you can see, if you eat food on earth, then you are on the road of sin and guilt. Can't imagine what that would do to somebody who's got disordered eating. So if you take this road of sin and guilt, you'll see that there are stops at self-focus, guilt and depression. There is no guilt. Deeper self-focus, compulsive behaviors, anger projection. Oh, but I guess if you keep going, then you get to passion seekers and true repentance, and then you hit God. Just follow the road and don't stop on the sides. I swear, fundies, they make these terrible, like, charts, and they think that they make sense, but they don't. Like, what does this mean? Feed the stomach only when it growls or burns. Stop feeding when it is satisfied. So the wrong way would be to eat it directly into your heart here and not into your stomach, I guess. Oh, here's a good tattoo for somebody that wants it. Obedience with a die in the middle. The way down approach teaches us that we have to face little deaths to ourselves daily. For example, if we have desire eating and we want to eat before we go to bed, we must run to the opposite end of the house, away from the food, get down on our knees, die to our wishes, and ask God to remove the desire. This form of obedience involves death to self. Death to self, or our will, is the core of obedience. And then here is a dieter's righteous dinner. We got a nice big salad, chalice of milk, some nice white bread, a grapefruit, and some cottage cheese. I wouldn't eat that, but hey. And then this one is saying that with the Way Down workshop, you will eat 2/3 less food than normal, which is always a good sign for your health. And then this one, which is really fucked up, try to raise your head out of the plate and look around and talk to people. Show less affection for the food. It's not your love anymore. Basically saying, like, talk to people. Don't eat. What are you, crazy? Eating? Fatty? What are you, a fatty? You fat? That's Gwen Shamblin. I got some more takeaways from the book that I've written down here. There's guilt trips about food, have to reach God's hunger point. She has this thing, she talks about head hunger, which is when you just want food to want it, instead of deserving food, which is another fucked up concept. We all deserve food, okay? Please remember that. She has instructions on how to happily skip meals and distract your family when they're asking why you aren't eating. She talks a lot about, like, you'll enjoy making the food and watching your family eat it. And you won't even have time to take a bite yourself. And then you'll lose weight. She has lots of rants about how it's your fault that you're fat. You need to be held accountable for your fatness. She talks a lot about how pure and good it feels to be empty. She talks a lot about getting to complete emptiness and how your body actually wants that, which is a really fucked up concept. Submitting to God, even to the point where, like, you ask him, how much should I eat? When should I eat? What should I eat? She's got this fucking story in there about how she's so reliant on God that she doesn't even use alarm clocks anymore. She just lets God wake her up at the perfect time every day. She uses horrific phrases like, how little food it takes to live. And I'm not going to elaborate. She says that type 2 diabetes is directly caused by overeating. She says that if you lose weight, you will be rewarded with things like a pregnancy that you wanted. She loves how healthy and godly fasting is. She said that your body does not need any extra food when you're sick. And she also has a handy-dandy section for you to track your weight loss, including, possibly multi-times a day weigh-ins. And then she's also got this part here that I really wanted to read to you, which is about all the, like, excuses people have and how they can still lose weight. For example, women diagnosed with lupus or kidney disease lose weight while under heavy doses of cortisone. So do men who claim terrible marriage situations or who have terminally ill children to care for. That's right, if your child is dying, that is no excuse. You need to lose the weight, fatty. People on the verge of bankruptcy who have had no job offer for over 12 months lose weight. And so do insulin-dependent diabetics and people confined to wheelchairs. Women lose weight who have lost a parent or child or who have heavily depressed because they have moved away from everyone they know. So do women and men diagnosed with cancer. Even lonely teenagers who have had to live with the pain of being made fun of daily have lost over 100 pounds. Why did we let her walk around free for years? We gotta talk about this cross that's made of fucking silverware here. Feel like that's something we need to be talking about. And this next section is really awful, and it's all about how to starve your children. So let's get into it. I don't want to do the accent for the whole fucking page, so I'm going to read it normal. Parents should start being responsive to their infant's hunger at birth. Feed on demand. However, make sure you learn the difference between the cries for comfort and the cries for discomfort of a wet diaper. Mothers who try to finish off a serving size determined by a baby food company have just confused the infant's natural hunger mechanism. You cannot see the serving size that is offered by breastfeeding mothers. You have to trust the infant's hunger and fullness mechanism. For this and many other reasons, I suggest breastfeeding for a natural amount of time. Now, I've had this problem. My infant is too fat, so I just decide to completely ignore all recommendations of how much to feed them, because how else are they going to fit into, their baby swimsuit? It is great for you to let go of control of your child's eating at the dinner table. Your job should be to serve a variety of foods. This way, your child will not overeat. Make sure that they are not drinking the bulk of their calories. Too much sweetened fluid is not good. After counseling for years, I saw that the number one enemy is drinks, especially fruit juices and sweetened drinks, even if the source of sugar is natural. Provide water or some artificially sweetened beverages between meals. Just one serving of juice could cause a little one to skip breakfast, so save the juice for the meal. Desserts should not be associated with the meal. In other words, if you do not want to set up a reward system of if you eat your food, you can have dessert, at our house, I offered supper to my family. Later that night, if the children were hungry again, I would let them choose what to eat. Sometimes they would choose a dessert and sometimes they would want cereal. Actually, most current cereals are really just dessert anyway. Or sometimes they would want some more of the supper. Sometimes they were not hungry after supper. If your child is overweight when you get this book, do not despair. Try to focus on your own obedience first, and you will make the largest impact on the child in that way. Do not control their eating. Pull back. Well, that's good. Teach them the basic hunger and fullness information. Oh, God. Make sure you make them their own personal Way Down workshop box that has their name on it. When your children say, "But my tummy wants more," and you know it is head hunger, say, "You can have it later." Put the food in a clear plastic bag and put their name on it. Now you know that the children have an empty hole in their heart that needs love and attention. You can provide this by using an alternate activity. Go on a walk together or swing on the ropes together or go play with the dog or read a book. Point out to them later that they completely forgot about the food. Show them that they did not eat the food when they did not need to eat it, and praise them for this. Never be a member of the Clean Plate Club. She literally is saying, if your child says they're hungry, put their food in the fridge, distract them, and then they'll learn that they weren't even hungry. They were just bored. After acquiring significant amounts of personal wealth off the backs of her vulnerable flock, Gwen founded the Remnant Fellowship Church in Franklin, Tennessee in 1999. The church's iconic new building was completed in 2004 on 40 acres in Brentwood, Tennessee. The reason why the church is called Remnant Fellowship is because they believe they are the only remaining true church, and that they are the only ones who are, doing things correctly. They're all about that every other church is a false church narrative. I mean, they even got Michael Shamblin singing about it.
This church replace, 'cause every other one is gonna teach false grace. May the next generation take it on and on and on and on.
Remnant has some controversial beliefs, besides the whole God is punishing the congregation because they aren't losing enough weight. In August of 2000, Gwen sent out an email that many Christians are saying is anti-Trinitarian. And in this email, Gwen talks about there being a distinct hierarchy between Jesus and God. So that was a very controversial belief.
The Christian belief on the Trinity teaches that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are united in one Godhead, that they are co-equal and co-eternal. Shamblin disagrees.
There is a teaching in the traditional creed of the Trinity that Jesus is equal to the Father. And so I hold a very strong stance of Philippians 2 that Jesus did not consider equality with God something to be grasped. All the New Testament writers and Jesus himself taught a Jesus that said, "Not my will, but thine be done."
Shamblin's theology statement posted on her website once read, "Where I differ on the teaching in the Trinity is that there is equality in power and glory of God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. Rather, I believe it is a clear line of authority." Her most recent statement reads, "Do you believe that Jesus is equal in power and glory?" The answer, no. The head of Christ is God. She goes on to say, the scriptures are teaching a scriptural line of authority, not polytheism. It's also been reported that as many as 40 employees of the workshop, based in Franklin, Tennessee, have either been fired or left on their own after refusing to sign on with Shamblin's theology and refusing to join a church she started called Remnant Fellowship.
Absolutely not true at all. When you happen to have a religious product, well, therein you'll find people that their consciences will say, well, I like working here, but, you know, I really can't support the product. So we've had some of that go on.
This controversy about the Trinity really was a big deal. It even got a mention in a Michael Shamblin song.
Ghosts of people that leave the church was still haunted. So Christian deal didn't work out. My mom's practically accosted from Trinity's statement was still undaunted.
A lot of trouble. Her book deal was canceled. She had all kinds of pastors and other Christians just calling her phone lines and cussing her out. And she was called a heretic, which is like the worst fucking thing you can be called as a Christian, apparently. Something else about them that has been bothering me is that this church is really bad about Jewish appropriation. And they're not the only Christian church who does this, but I mean, there's a lot of examples, but they try to incorporate Jewish traditions in their weddings. They celebrate Passover as a church, and they even got Michael singing about it in his fucking songs.
So where are your Jews? 'Cause I refuse to be left behind. Is this the way to go? I'm so confused in my mind. Help me, brother, help me, sister, in the head. Will you show me the way to the promised land?
And despite this church being run by the most gaslightingest girl boss ever to gatekeep, they are very sexist. If you're not in Gwen's elite circle and you're not getting a divorce, she doesn't give a shit about your rights. They're very big on obedience, submission, all the patriarchal stuff. It just so happens to be that Gwen is leading. I don't know. I think it's really funny. Like I said, she refuses to give herself any ecclesiastical titles, probably because of her Church of Christ upbringing. But it seems that she's okay with being called a prophet. At least she doesn't stop people from being called that. And when questioned about it, she cannot give you a straight answer.
Are you a prophet? Are you a prophet?
I don't believe I know what my gift name is. So I will tell you, I'm still wrestling with that. I've been told that for years, but I have never, on any tapes that I know of, ever said it. People say it. Somebody has said it to you. But you're not going to find it on my tapes. You're not going to find it, you know, on anything written. And I don't think it really matters what my gifts are, but let's just say God's using me to set people free. Absolutely. And to lead them back to Him and to lay down idols.
And I guess I asked the question because people may be more inclined to yield to your advice on child discipline, weight loss, medications, if they believe that you are a prophet of God.
And I would agree with that. You know, so that's why I've not used it.
But you think you are?
I don't know what my gifts are, Phil. I don't really know what they are. I do believe that God has called me to say a message, that there are multiple things in people's hearts. They're bound down to the dollar bill and to God. They're bound down to the food and to God. They're bound down to the drugs and to God. And I don't think He wants polytheism in our hearts. And I believe that that message is powerful, and that God gave it to me years ago, and it's been setting thousands of people free. So you tell me what I am, but many people call me many different things. It depends on the denomination they're from. There are many denominations. When people come from various backgrounds, they will use that term. As for me, I don't call myself anything.
And that is not the only time that has happened. Wouldn't you know, I have another clip of her being asked if she's a prophet, and she still won't talk about it.
To your knowledge, do any of the members of the Remnant Fellowship consider you to be a prophet?
Object to the form.
Okay. I would like, at my deposition for the record, to say I'm the one that says, look, my highest goal was to be a registered dietitian in the bottom of a hospital with a hairnet on. I don't think of myself as anything. I mean, I feel like God is who gives to men, and so I believe people should be giving glory back to God for anything that they've got. But no, I do not consider myself, I do not say it. I don't even ask for the word pastor, preacher, anything. I'm asking for it to be called Gwen.
Well, the question, though, was whether or not, and this is just to your knowledge, whether or not you know if any of the members of Remnant consider you to be a prophet.
Object to the form.
Okay. May I say that when people come into Remnant, they're coming from all different denominations. You might hear Pentecostals who have that interpretation. There's different people are coming from various religious backgrounds with definitely different definitions of the word prophet. What is your definition of prophet? I mean, have I heard some Pentecostals use that term? Or media. I've heard media say it, but it's...
So you don't think that you're a prophet?
I know that by the world's definition of a prophet, no. But I do believe that the Bible teaches of gifts, and that God has, you know, definitely I wound up years later thinking, well, maybe God's using me for something, but I don't know. I couldn't categorize exactly where you'd put me.
So, if you have
speaker,
more to say,
gifted speaker.
Okay. So you're definitely, it doesn't sound like you're willing to categorize yourself as a prophet, just somebody that, I guess, God is working through in some way. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
If somebody asked me if I was a prophet and I didn't want people to think that I was a prophet, I would just fucking lie. Like, why? Are you a prophet, Gwen Shamblin? Just say no. People were joining the churches in droves, getting married, having babies, working at these remnant businesses, losing weight, and just crawling as far up Gwen's ass as they possibly could. There was even a way down bus tour, which I don't have a lot of information about, but just can you imagine? Can you imagine a situation where there's like dueling trucks and you got the ice cream truck and the way down workshop truck down your street, and you're, which one will God want me to choose? God wants you to eat the half-melted SpongeBob fucking popsicle. Remnant is a part of what they call the Brentwood Bubble. It's this really rich, really white area near Nashville. First of all, Gwen lives in a plantation house. Yeah. And it is also used as a venue for all of the Remnant Fellowship weddings. Check out the remnantfellowshipweddings.com for more information. You know, it makes a lot of sense that all the children in this cult are dressed like Victorian child ghosts, because there's probably a lot of hauntings going on at the fucking old Ashlawn Manor. Ugh. And everybody seems to be working for various remnant businesses. They all know each other. They all try to look like Gwen. Very Stepford wife, I hear a lot. Apparently everybody is mean and hungry. And, you know, there's this crazy culture of surveillance. And I mean, they're watching your social media. They're also watching, like, who you talk to in person. They got an elaborate network of snitches. And it just sounds like just awful. It just sounds like a terrible environment.
Are you aware that a lot of folks have, at least online, expressed that they think Remnant Fellowship is a cult?
Check to the form.
I'm not aware of a lot. It's kind of like, so a lot of people, no. And you'd have to define a lot, because it's anonymous, which can, you could have 5 people with a lot of aliases. So, no, I'm not.
Gwen hosts all kinds of lavish parties and festivals, yes, I said festivals, on her Ashlawn plantation. And notably, they do have all kinds of food and activities at these big parties. But somebody said in the documentary, we couldn't eat, but we could drink. So, and I did also hear in the documentary as well that at these festivals, Gwen used to have people bring baskets of food for donation, and now she just has them bring money. Also a part of remnant culture / Brentwood culture, it's the same thing in my opinion, is that, you know, you aren't allowed to go to therapy, you aren't allowed to take meds, and you have to pretend to be happy all the time because you don't want to make the movement look bad. Where have I heard that before? Gwen also allegedly kept a list of curses that would happen to people when they left Remnant, including miscarriage, which, God, what the fuck is wrong with you? And also gaining weight, which, of course, you're going to gain weight when you leave Remnant because you're eating food for the first time in 5 years, but whatever. So we already know that Gwen's all about starving your children. We read that section. But did you know they're also hitting them?
If they're not scared of a spanking, you haven't spanked them. If you haven't really spanked them yet, you don't love them. You love yourself.
Would it ever be appropriate to spank a 2-year-old over and over and over and over and over and over in one night?
No, that's not what we teach here, Phil.
A year ago, our 2.5-year-old Avery, we had a real showdown with her.
But in this conference call with Remnant women, another Remnant leader, David Martin, holds out his own showdown spanking with his daughter as an example.
And we had a leg spanking over and over and over and over and over and over again. And one evening.
Okay, you're listening. Okay, well then you need to talk to David Martin about that then, because that's not.
And you agree that was the perfect way to handle a child.
David Martin had a real showdown. It was a one-night showdown, and that child never forgot it.
But are you asking, does that go on very often? Are you kidding? No, it does not. It is so rare.
Tell me about the use of glue sticks to spank children.
Was not from here. It came from a member somewhere, someplace else, because and it went around.
I have to say allegedly, but I don't mean it. Remnant had been advocating for, good old-fashioned biblical beatdowns, and it eventually ended up in a child being tortured to death, essentially. God, I wish that would stop happening on this channel. There was this family, husband and wife, Joseph and Sonia Smith, but they had been acting on instructions from Gwen of these different ways to discipline their son, who, let's be honest, was probably not doing anything. And they would lock him in a room by himself with just a Bible. They would abuse him in really horrific ways. And this was not an isolated incident. This was happening all over the church, apparently. Eventually, they hurt him badly enough that he passed away. And the church, Remnant, actually got raided by the police and several other government organizations, and they couldn't find anything. I have personal theories on why that would be, but it is very obvious that the church was up to something. They created a website called thesmithsareinnocent.com, and they also created a website called thesmithsareguilty.com, which redirects you to the other one. And on that website, they claim that this little boy died from eczema, even though he was covered head to toe in bruises, and came out in court that it was one of the most horrendous abuse cases that they had ever seen.
Now, News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams has obtained new video that shows the church's controversial founder being questioned 2 years before her death about her teachings and about Phil's own investigation into the death of a Remnant child.
Do you swear or affirm testimony about to give in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
In this 2019 deposition obtained by News Channel 5 Investigates, Gwen Shamblin, whose Christian diet plan, the Way Down Workshop, morphed into its own religion.
Can you see it okay?
Yeah, pretty good.
From your news and information leader.
Was confronted with a 2004 News Channel 5 investigation into the child abuse death
For wisdom is more precious than
of a Remnant child, 8-year-old Joseph Smith of Atlanta.
If they're not scared of a spanking, you haven't spanked them. If you haven't really spanked them yet, you don't love them. You love yourself.
Was that yourself you just heard on that recording or not?
Object to the form.
Those were sound bites.
Well, I understand that, but was that
okay.
your voice or not?
Yes.
Okay.
The deposition, taken in conjunction with a custody case involving a child fathered by Shamblin's husband, Joe Lara, resurrected old questions about Shamblin's Brentwood Church, the Remnant Fellowship, and its teachings on child discipline.
Children that were lost and out of control are now back under the authority of their loving parents. And
Questions that have dogged the church ever since two Remnant parents, Joseph and Sonia Smith, were arrested and convicted for young Joseph's murder. Those convictions were were upheld by a federal appeals court last year, with one opinion noting overwhelming evidence that the Smiths routinely disciplined their son by beating him with glue sticks, belts, and heated coat hangers, locking him in confined spaces for extended periods of time, and tying his hands with rope.
There was no connection between our teachings and the death of that child. So that doesn't get played on TV.
Tell me about the use of glue sticks to spank children.
Was not from here. It came from a member somewhere.
In fact, our investigation had uncovered an audio recording from inside Remnant Fellowship.
I did exactly what Ted told me to do, take everything out of his room. We got everything out of there and locked him in there from that Friday until Monday, and only left him in the room with his Bible.
In which Joseph Smith's mother bragged to Shamblin about the harsh punishment inflicted upon their child.
And you had a chance to tell her that was not correct.
That was not on there.
Instead, you said, praise the Lord.
No, that was not on there.
We are spoiling these kids. We are, ruining their lives by even letting them think about themselves at all. So thank you, Sonia, for sharing that.
In the deposition, Shamblin was confronted with her own words.
But do you think it's wrong for kids to think about themselves?
Object to the form.
Of course not. Everybody loves themselves. Everybody feeds themselves. Everybody's, when you're sleepy, sleep. When you're thirsty, eat. Whatever you need love, you need that. But the fact is that that'd be the opposite of what I would teach.
After News Channel 5's report, police raided Shamblin's Way Down workshop looking for evidence. Shamblin, for the first time, describes an exhaustive investigation.
What they did from Phil Williams doing this, they had to go investigate it. DCS, CPS, investigated homes. They took all my teachings, all of it, the entire server, every book, everything, and the police and the FBI and the TBI, they all kept it for over a year and went through every teaching, and they closed the case.
Investigators have said they never found evidence that Shamblin nor anyone else at Remnant Fellowship ever intended for anything as horrific as what happened to Joseph.
Have you ever used a belt to spank any of your kids?
No.
I'm not real sure what the purpose of the question is.
Still in the deposition, Shamblin's lawyer, Remnant leader Russ Morgan, made it clear he's fed up with such insinuations.
I'm just getting sick of hearing people talk about spanking. When I was spanked when I was a kid my whole life, like assuming that my parents were bad parents.
Okay. It's noted for the record.
I was spanked by my principal in elementary school and high school.
Well, it seems like you're taking this very personally.
I am. I'm getting sick of hearing about spanking being wrong.
18 years later, Remnant Fellowship continues to argue that young Joseph died as a result of a skin-related infection and not child abuse. Remnant's lawyer has now been involved in multiple appeals on behalf of the parents who've lost back at the trial court at the Georgia Supreme Court, a federal court in Atlanta, as well as a federal appeals court.
In case you're wondering, the Smiths are serving life in prison plus 30 years. And according to the Remnant website, Joseph and Sonia are doing great and have been model inmates, respected by other inmates and the officials in the Georgia system. They have been instrumental in bringing Bible classes into the prisons and leading countless fellow inmates to the message of Christ and of God. Because remember, Jesus and God are two different people, according to Gwen Shamblin. In fact, because of the groundwork laid in the prison system by church members helping the Smiths implement Bible classes, Remnant Fellowship now offers Bible studies and provides fellowship in many prisons across the country. In fact, Remnant Fellowship was awarded the 2014 Faith-Based Contributor of the Year by the Georgia Department of Corrections. Well, thank God for that. This is all just a great representation of the culture of child abuse and fear and obedience and will breaking that goes on at the lovely Remnant Fellowship. Here is a song that is intended to be a part of the Zion Kids program, which is Remnant Fellowship for Children. I'm sorry I can't blur every child in this video. I'm so fucking sorry. This song is horrifying, and when you listen to it, you'll understand how people end up brainwashed.
Every single day and every night, glorify the Lord delight. Yeah, jump head first into the fight, glorify the Lord delight. because he made the days. I'll give him all the praise every day and every night. Glorify the Lord delight. Yeah, children, be obedient, for this shall please the Lord. Yeah, all of God's children obedient, for this shall please the Lord. Because he made the sky, for him I'll gladly die. Every day and every night, glorify the Lord delight. Come on! Because he made the sky, for him I'll gladly die. Every day and every night, glorify the Lord delight.
I watched a lot of videos where Gwen and Joe and the whole church, they refer to all of the children in the church as remnant children. Like there is a collective like group of children that belong to the church. And you know that they probably feel that way. Even if they're not saying it, they really are like, these are resources, you know? It's probably why it's so important for Remnant to pay for the lawyers and get custody of these kids of, you know, the divorced Remnant people. In fact, in the documentary, they talk about how it's encouraged to sign custody of your children over to the church in your will. They really want these kids.
In Remnant, they have lawyers that are doing God's work for free. And they recommend that you, in a will, leave your children to the church. It's not just something that Jessica did. It's something that they are advised to do.
All right, so now it's time to talk about Gwen's love life. Gwen famously got a divorce and then remarried almost immediately to Joe Laura. But what was interesting about that is that she completely changed her stance on divorce.
America is in trouble here. We've got just as much divorce inside the church as out. The church has morphed into the world.
But Shamblin's new views on divorce and remarriage, posted to the church's website around the same time she decided to divorce her own husband, insisted that God himself divorced Israel, his bride, for turning away from the faith. So there should be no judgment towards saints, meaning remnant members, as they strive to help build a pure church. Her wedding, less than 2 months after her divorce was finalized, became a high church event.
Did you pay for the wedding?
No.
The wedding video, also posted online, boasted that Remnant followers had traveled from around the globe to be there for Gwen's wedding. Shamblin explained that members producing beautiful weddings for members was one of her church's ministries. As for whether it was all free...
So you didn't have to cut any personal checks to pay for this wedding?
Talking about my dress, I mean, I don't call. I mean, there's some things, obviously, that I purchased.
She used to be anti-divorce in the church. All kinds of people would be suffering in their marriages, and she would tell them to suck it up. That was until, you know, she wanted to get a divorce, and then it seemed like everybody else got a divorce after that too. Like it was a trend, and like I said, Gwen had her lawyers fighting for custody for her members, and they were going after people's property and just anything that Gwen wanted.
In fact, long before the HBO docuseries, Remnant Fellowship had faced accusations of breaking up families when one person joins but other family members refuse. In a 2004 divorce case out of Connecticut, Hominy versus Hominy, the court quoted the Remnant wife's statements that we must take God's work seriously and we must take everything his prophet Gwen and the other leaders are saying seriously. The wife also said leaders in Remnant have to be willing to stand up and get rid of even relatives who are idol worshipers.
Do you think that Remnant Fellowship has been responsible for the breakup of any families associated with the church?
Check to the form.
In the Hominy case, the court said Remnant Fellowship provided $10,000 to help with the wife's legal fees.
When Remnant members go through divorces, do you ever fund litigation for those folks?
Me personally, no.
Shamblin went on to explain that Remnant Fellowship has a committee that addresses requests for financial help from members, including help with legal fees. Yet when the attorney tried to get into the details,
I'm an instructor not to answer any.
Shamblin's lawyer, Remnant leader Russ Morgan, objected, citing what he called Tennessee's pastor's privilege.
So I don't think you're entitled to know what.
It's not like spiritual guidance, though, is it?
Could be, yeah. I'm instructing her not to answer. You can take it up with the judge.
Like, nobody cared about it until you brought it up, bitch. We got to talk a little bit about Joe's backstory before we see the amazing love story between him and Gwen. William Joseph Laura was born October 2nd, 1962. He is from California, and apparently his mom married a rich Wells Fargo banker, and they were pretty well off. Joe used to be an actor before he retired to pretend to be a religious person.
God is the ultimate architect, the ultimate orchestrator of the heart and the mind, and he knew that man was alone, so he you know, this, it's like Adam went, man, woman.
Yes, he did.
That's good.
It's good.
Yeah.
It seems like his entire job at Remnant is just picking up Gwen and spinning her around. Whatever. I mean, everybody needs a job, I guess. But he used to be an actor. He became famous for playing Tarzan in a TV movie. Joe was a legit party playboy. He did drugs. He was banging all kinds of chicks. He has a failed music career as well. And you know what? He is no Michael Chamberlain, I will tell you that.
And you play it coy, but it's kinda cute. Oh, when you smile at me, you know exactly what to do. Baby, don't pretend that you don't know it's true, 'cause you can see it when I look at you.
And apparently he did not like working, which might be one of the reasons why he had a sugar mama. But hey, no shame, Joe. I just want you to admit it. In the documentary, you see a lot more of this person, and I love her, so I, hope she gets her own fucking spinoff. Joe's ex-girlfriend, Natasha. She met Joe when they were young in an acting class together, and the two had a whirlwind romance, which culminated in the birth of their daughter. The custody battle of whom is a huge plot line of the documentary. One of the ways that Joe tried to get custody of his daughter was he accused Natasha of some horrific abuse, which was clearly and obviously not true. By the way, Natasha represented herself like a badass, and she had to do it up against the scary lawyers at Remnant. Anyway, a little bit of a spoiler / happy ending. She got her daughter back, and everything is looking up. You gotta watch this thing. It's so good. Let's talk about Gwen and Joe's engagement, because it is certainly iconic. So this engagement is totally over the top. It's completely staged. There's fireworks. There's like dramatic voiceovers. Keep this in the back of your mind. Tell me if you recognize this song.
Joe, Laura, in every language I say yes.
Not only is it the song from Shrek, but it got me copyright claimed, because when I originally did my Gwen Shamblin video, I played the engagement video, and I got copyright claimed. Bitch, don't you have an in-house fucking music maker, son? Go get him to make you a song. Why am I being punished for your choice of song? So that leads up to their wedding, which... Let me just play you the original intro to my Gwen Shamblin video, because I edited it to make it scary, and it just fits perfectly.
I heard some type of bump downstairs in the night. Bump downstairs in the night.
Let's say hi, God. And she'd say, hi, God.
But it's not even as scary as the original. What's with the fucking Gregorian monk chants? What's with all the spooky, scary ghost children? This wedding, if it wasn't so fucked up, would be high camp.
And if the dark forces should ever manifest themselves against us, I vow to never stand behind you, because I'll be in front of you.
So after they got married, Gwen and Joe made a YouTube channel called Life with Gwen and Joe, and Michael Shamblin does the music for this, and just take a listen.
Life with God is so good.
So come join us on this fun life where we put God in the center of everything.
Bro, can you lighten up a little bit? Did you pay attention to those lyrics?
I'll keep shining my light, shining my light. Every day is the same, headed straight for the grave. And I'm thankful for living, thankful for living, thankful for living, yeah.
Every day is the same, headed straight for the grave. If you don't think that's funny, then check this out. The last video ever uploaded to the Gwen and Joe channel is about martyrs. I'm not saying that they're martyrs, but the church probably is going to say that they are. There's all kinds of these videos on the Gwen and Joe channel. A lot of them are very boring. They have bad audio quality, and they're mostly just like starving yourself / bragging about how rich they are. And they're just absurd. Half the time, Joe looks like this is the first time he's ever opened up a Bible, or he's like being weird and staring at the camera, and randomly they start talking about what the fox says.
We got to bring up our good friend and brother, Daniel Baker.
Oh, and then there's this fucking video that's extremely disturbing, all about how good it feels to be empty and how you should be emptying yourself. Joe likes to be empty.
We're talking about empty today, and I mean, Joe loves getting empty. I mean, you were talking about this past week.
Yes, and I've actually recently discovered the whole concept and principle of getting your system empty. I never really thought about that earlier in my life. I would just eat and not really think about it. But when we say empty, it's just letting your body get to the point where you're really hungry.
Yeah.
And it feels good at that point. Food seems to taste a little bit better when you're anticipating really eating, and I think we start, that's some of the principles of fasting even.
Yeah.
When people fast, it's a biblical thing. Come to enjoy, like if I skip a meal, I'll say, you know what, it's okay that I didn't eat that meal because I have plenty of food in my system, I have plenty of energy, but I'm certainly not just eating for the sake of eating. I'm literally waiting till my system gets to the point where I'm really hungry, and then I'm so anticipating eating, and the food tastes really good at that point.
I get really inspiring because I'll go, "Are you eating lunch today?" He goes, "No, I've had plenty. I'm not eating again to dinner. I know we're going out tonight." So it's really fun to be around people that are on the same page with you. And
That's Gwen's husband, but what about the rest of her family?
I would like to now introduce you to some amazing people, starting with my sister, Elizabeth Shamblin Hannah.
Michelle Elizabeth is Gwen's daughter. She goes by Elizabeth now. She looks and sounds exactly like Gwen. It's really freaky.
I want to take you back in time just a little bit to behind the scenes of what it was really like to grow up in the Shamblin family with a brother like Michael and with a mother like Gwen, and hopefully be able to give you all some more insight into Gwen Shamblin's true character, who she was as a mother, as a mentor, and as a friend. As far as I can remember back when we were infants, she spent every night rocking me and Michael to sleep. And she sang over us the same song every night, and I'll never forget it. It was "Take Their Life, O Father, mold it in obedience to thy will." And that was the song and the blessing and the prayer she sang over us every single night for as long as I can remember.
Something that I had no idea about, and I'm really glad they touched on it in the documentary, was that Apparently, Elizabeth had a baby and it passed away, and Gwen tried to sweep it under the rug. No mentions of the situation, no special prayers, no grieving process was even acknowledged. And the people of Remnant knew this was fucked up, and they didn't really know how to say anything. Like, this was a very high control group. Everything is like extremely volatile and scary, and you don't want Gwen to chew your head off in front of everybody, and you don't want to make Elizabeth feel any worse. And apparently Elizabeth was never the same after this situation, and she appears in both personality and appearance as a ghost of her former self. And it makes total sense to think that Gwen was treating the death of her own grandchild and the effect that it was having on her daughter like it was nothing. What the fuck is wrong with her? She is truly evil. And not only was the church just supposed to ignore this death, the audacity to insinuate that this was God's punishment for misbehavior in the church.
And now the leader's grandson has just died. And if anything bad ever happened to the church, God was judging us. So everybody was looking at themselves going, was it me? Did I cause this? I mean, this is just how the depths of where she had us in our walk with God.
So I'm not gonna lie, I used to be an apologetic Michael Shamblin stan. I mean, I made a bunch of GIFs, a little, fan stuff. His song God's Pain was literally my number 2 song on my Spotify Wrapped of 2020. As you can see there, I was really into Christian rock and bad bitch jams. Now that I know about some of the allegations against Michael Shamblin, maybe it's not the best idea to stan him. I will say that he is a very talented artist. He defies all genres. And one of his close musical companions is a guy named Brent Barkus, and he actually used to play guitar for Shania Twain, and that don't impress me much. Yeah, we can't talk about anything else until we talk about these songs, so let's get into it. This song is called Chasing Stars, and this music video is filled with all kinds of symbolism, such as this angel leaving Earth and it being destroyed because all the people are dirty sinners, and Michael Shamblin is out in space with the Remnant Fellowship because he's a true believer.
Frightened people in this country that are flinching from the slightest sound, screaming, where can I find enough? Give me meds, I'm so down. But changing environment's not an answer, not a medicine on shelves, but looking at a mirror and us deciding to change ourselves.
So not only is this like anti-prescription drugs, but it's also like a little mirror swing there.
Looking for a heaven, cause I can no longer afford this hell. I can't move a mountain, Lord.
Help! My life impales! I don't know who this lady is, but she is really saving this song. Like, you go, girl. Oh my god, guys. The plot twist of the century. So I got copyright claimed for Chasing Stars, and I was like, why? That's a Michael Shamblin song. No. They got this song from some DJ, and the lady that's singing is a part of this song. The angel lady in the Michael Shamblin video is not the lady that's singing.
When you're looking in the mirror glow,
while you're flying, keep that flow. I like it.
In the air, you're fighting against the undertow. Keep it humble, keep it low. They don't want you to make it no. Changing environment inwardly, and no more pointing sinwardly.
Changing environment inwardly, no more pointing sinwardly.
So tired of the old day-to-day. Circumstances can be frustrating, but I know I can't change anyone else. There's only one person I can change. It's me. No more projecting.
Why even put yourself in there twice if the second guy is just gonna stand there?
God, this is the time. Life's not worth it any other way. I know when I greet the brand new day, my mindset's gonna be different, hey.
Now on to my personal favorite ever, the most amazing emo masterpiece about being tortured and about how something false churches, and there's rain. I'm talking about God's Pain. That's an interesting shot of your water going down your chin there, buddy.
Not a day goes by that I don't have to pray. 1 million splinter churches, everybody goes their own way. Laid myself down flat on the ground. This is the war of the lost and found. And do I feel God's hey, 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 hey? So tell me, what's it gonna be? Do you want self or Christianity? What you fighting for?
what you're fighting for.
Somewhere I choose, 'cause I refuse to be left behind.
Just to be clear, I do not endorse the lyric about true Jews in this song. I just wanted to let you know that I skip it when I'm singing the song. I don't even say it. I'm sorry. It's bad. The guitar playing in the rain, iconic. But I'm pretty sure somebody was just spraying him with a hose. I forgot about the fucking shot of him looking out the window.
Help me, brother, help me, sister, lend a hand.
With the rain on my face, God's pain on my mind. With the rain on my face, God's pain on my mind. With the rain on my face, God's pain on my mind. With the rain on my face, God's pain on my mind. Oh, well, that was exciting. It can't get any better than that, right? Like, certainly he can't top the greatest song of all time, right? I do want to know why Michael keeps looking off to the side of the screen as if he's being held by gunpoint.
Lately I've been ducking and driving issues that were strangling me. And all before I was calling the Cold War, and I thought to myself, this is Christianity. Projection needs some correction. Thanks for directing me. Humble down now to the floor, so low to the ground. Whereas before, I would've never bowed a knee.
Ways to go to get rid of all this fakeness in my heart. I say no more, makes me sore from touching the tree. I hate this. Depression's not an option anymore. Cycle of self, break this.
Depression's not an option anymore. Cycle of self, break this. That's some deep lyrics. That's some real deep shit right there.
Looking for man's approval, thumbs down is how we rate this. I thought that you were part of me, but I found out the heart of me is a hard one. I'm starting to feel more like a garter snake.
And if you hunt down this music video, you will see the first time that I talked about this video and I went and left a comment, and there's some Jennonite artifacts there from 2 years ago. Anyway. One last thing. I'm pretty sure I am the only person on earth who has a copy of the next clip I'm about to play you. I think that Michael has been doing some, I think Michael has been attempting to repair his image, maybe clean up his digital footprint, because this song is gone along with quite a few other songs. He also changed his profile picture on Spotify, which, only I would notice, right? I don't know, I just think it's interesting.
If stars predicted futures, then I'd ask the constellations. Is a peaceful world coming for the next generation? How my kids graduate and getting occupations. 20 years time, are we all working for Asians?
So we got to talk about the musical, okay? So that is a term coined by Michael. It's a musical that you view, and it's called Voices. He's done other musical. He did one called Hosanna Symphony, and this one is called Voices. And it's... how do I describe it? It is the greatest theatrical performance that has ever been put on by human beings.
Searching man.
It's got everything. It's emo. It has all kinds of, it has rap in it. There's a song called YOLO.
This is your new desire. Pursue it, run fast. Don't go slow. Remember Robashans. You only live once. So YOLO.
People who live in this world, they're called Robashans, and they live in a place called Robasha. They're like trying to fight the false teachings of the church. I know.
I feel so alone. I try to tell them, but it feels like no one's home. I look in the glassy eyes to all the people I wanted to say that false religion never helped us anyway, never helped us anyway.
Angelic voice.
So I don't have a full copy of the musical. I wish I did. I tried. I definitely asked around. Not only did I find the PDF of the program, but I also found the Remnant Fellowship Pinterest page, which had lots of pictures of behind the scenes of the musical. I love the aesthetic of this thing. It's very Black Parade, although you can tell that Michael definitely ripped off this Nightwish album cover. And here Michael he's going to explain the plot of this very confusing project.
And it's 2 hours of just something that it has every aspect of a show that is off Broadway, but it's doubled. It seems like it has all of the elements and then some more. So it's amazing, but give some background to V2 and how all this came about.
I would love to. And first of all, I've just got to say, it couldn't have happened without this church and the amount of people that are willing to give up their time, give up their lives, the self-sacrifice that people make. And they're doing it all for God. And so none of it could have happened without God, of course, and all of your direction that you've given. It's been amazing. So thank you so much for that. But yeah, the story it's about a man who's searching, he's empty inside. And I would say it somewhat reflects my own spiritual journey that I've had. As the man, he's searching around, he's looking for, it seems like he's looking for God. He's looking in all the wrong places. And he's looking at substances, he's trying out different things, he's feeling empty inside, and he tries different places of religion. He's trying the nightlife. He's trying everything. He feels empty inside, and he doesn't know what to do. He's got this hole inside, and people that are familiar with Way Down would know what you've talked about for years about people running to the refrigerator or running to alcohol or substance. But that's the story. It's the man. He's lost. He's empty, and he's looking for an answer.
Apparently, Michael has left the church a few times. He struggles with depression and substance abuse. His weight would go up and down, and every time he was overweight, Gwen would hide him.
Gwen had said that he wanted to get this record deal, and she wanted him to use his gift in the church, and he left the church. When he came back, he was just different. He seemed angry. He would show up for church with sunglasses on, messed up hair, crumpled clothes, and if his glasses came off, bloodshot eyes. He looked like he'd been sleeping on streets for 3 days. I mean, he was just a mess. Like, what is going on with Michael Shamblin?
And then he also had an affair?
It wasn't long after that we met. We met privately. No, he was constantly monitored. Yeah, messages were kept short. But basically, I want to see you. Let's meet. When can we meet? Always brought over a bottle of Jack Daniels. And had already been consuming alcohol. It was always evident. I could see the pain in his eyes. He was in a loveless marriage. He had to perform his own duties to please his mom.
Things were getting dark with Michael, and let me tell you, when I saw this next clip, my jaw dropped.
He told me that he was so angry he would shoot at the church at night sometimes. I remember telling myself, I hope my child is never in that place for the day that he loses it.
I also found out recently that he is divorcing his wife, and that makes me wonder, what would young Michael have to say about that?
They're going to be nowhere, and in 5 years, they're going to be depressed, overweight. Their marriages are going to fall apart. If they even get married, they're going to get divorced. All these horrible things are happening right now, and it's just getting worse. So you've got to start over. We're starting a new trend, and that trend is obedience.
Wow, Michael, you are just going to shit when you see what you look like now. I didn't say you could look away. So all of this, the eating disorders, the lawsuits, the child murder, the son with the terrible music career, where does this all go? I personally remember hearing about Gwen Shamblin for the very first time on Free Ginger, and it just fascinated me. I was like, who is this woman? Why is she dressed so strangely? What's with this hair? Why do these kids look like Victorian ghosts? What's going on? And then I made my video, and now we know there is a huge community of ex-remnant members. They have their own support groups. The people are coming out in droves to tell their story. And now with this documentary, even more people are becoming emboldened to leave. And until her death, it was really scary to speak out against Gwen Shamblin, especially if you used to be a part of Remnant. Gwen and Joe and a couple of other couples who were prominent Remnant people, plus Elizabeth's husband, Brandon, they were on Joe's plane heading to a MAGA event that had none other than Roger Stone speaking. It appears that Joe lost control. He was very confused. He was disoriented, and they fell out of the sky very, very fast into an 8-foot lake. So they probably didn't feel anything. He also hadn't been flying for a few years, so it was just like not a good, he shouldn't have been flying. And now after this crash, Elizabeth sent out a really weird text message to Remnant. Remnant Saints, my brother and I are asking for immediate prayers right now, as we have just gotten word that Gwen and Joe Laura's plane had to go down for a controlled quick landing. We do not have the word yet of the outcome, but we are asking for prayers, as this plane held Gwen and Joe, Brandon, Hannah, the Martins, and the Walters. Adults only. More information to come, but be in prayer and be at peace. God is in control, and we will not stop moving forward with what God wants with this church. On behalf of Michael and I both, we love this church and need the prayers of the righteous on this one. Thank you, and we will keep you posted. I don't know why she said that it was a controlled quick landing. I mean, maybe she was in shock. Keep in mind, Elizabeth lost her mom and her husband, her stepdad, some close friends of hers from the church, and now she has to run Remnant. And I don't think anybody wanted to run Remnant. That's horrible. That's horrible. Yeah, really sad.
Gwen Shamblin Lara, who created a Christian diet plan that became its own religion, of course, died in a plane crash back in May.
Now, that crash also killed her husband and 5 leaders of her Brentwood church. But as News Channel 5's chief investigative reporter Phil Williams discovered, Shamblin's last will and testament is reviving old questions about her ministry and her money.
Gwen Shamblin Lara was a controversial figure in life, and her death, a horrific plane crash into Percy Priest Lake that killed her, her husband Joe Lara, and 5 leaders of her church, could bring new controversy for Shamblin's legacy as founder of Brentwood's Remnant Fellowship.
I hate to say this to some degree because she's deceased, but she struck me as a 100% phony, as a grifter, a huckster.
Veteran Nashville lawyer Gary Blackburn sued Shamblin 20 years ago.
The money is going to go to David and I.
Getting her to admit under oath that she was indeed profiting from her ministry. Yet listen to what her daughter Elizabeth told followers just 4 years ago.
I mean, she practically handed Michael and I's inheritance away, but let me tell you.
But News Channel 5 Investigates obtained Shamblin's will, a will that leaves everything to her 2 children. Like Gary Blackburn, we noticed one glaring omission. How much money was left to Remnant Fellowship?
I've looked at the will a couple of times and I haven't seen any.
In a written statement, the church claimed the Shamblin's donation of the church property and building 2 decades ago was worth about $10 million, and that she had handed her publishing rights over to the church. It concludes, this was an incredible gift of generosity from Gwen and her family's inheritance, and the church would expect no more.
It was never intended to be accumulated, but rather used as one small tool to build up the kingdom of God.
In fact, at the time of her death, Shamblin was 1/3 of the way through a 9-week video series on greed, a series in which she urged Remnant followers to be prepared to give up everything.
If you cling to your money, you're going to lose it. But if you give it up, you'll find it again.
Ironically, in 2018, less than 2 months before Shamblin married Tarzan actor Joe Lara in an elaborate Remnant Fellowship wedding, she entered into a divorce agreement with her first husband, David. That agreement, filed in court, details how the couple would split 18 separate pieces of property. Those properties our investigation discovered are now valued at more than $20 million. She also had to pay David another $3 million out of her own pockets. Among the properties that the woman of God got to keep in her divorce, our investigation discovered was an elegant beach house here in Destin, Florida. A house that was described in real estate listings as Gulfront living at its finest. Located right on the Gulf of Mexico, this was Shamblin's beach home, with its 4 bedrooms and 5 baths, located in a gated community known as Destiny by the Sea. Property records showed the Shamblins paid almost $2 million for it in 2010. It's now valued by Zillow at more than $4 million. An old listing for the home boasted of its master bedroom with a Gulf view, with his and her master bathrooms and a lavish library.
Joe likes scuba diving. See that? It spells scuba.
This video, which ends with a discussion of Joe Lara's love of scuba diving, appears to have been recorded from the balcony of that beach house.
Okay, we can go to Pompanos now. Bye, everybody.
Back in Brentwood, just down the road from the church, the divorce settlement shows Shamblin also got to keep the couple's pre-Civil War plantation home known as Ashlawn. The current value of that property, about $7 million. Yet right after her second marriage, property records show Shamblin began transferring her real estate holdings not into Remnant's name, but into the names of various trusts, effectively shielding the real identity of the owners. The beach home is listed as the 4714 Ocean Trust, Ashlawn as the 902 Franklin Trust, and lake property along Center Hill Lake as the Highway 56 Farm Trust.
But most of the world has abandoned true religion and are now converts to building up their own pocketbooks. Yet God is a God of justice, and he will not be mocked.
Less than 4 weeks later, Shamblin would die in that plane crash. As a result, we may never get certain answers about how much wealth she really accumulated, about why her will fails to even mention her beloved Remnant Fellowship. What does that tell you?
Well, it suggests to me, perhaps I'm cynical, it suggests to me that the accumulation was not for God, it was for Gwen.
We also discovered that Gwen Shamblin suddenly reached that divorce settlement with her first husband 3 years ago after her attorneys filed this subpoena to require Remnant Fellowship to reveal all payments and fringe benefits provided to her and to Joe Lara, as well as any non-disclosure agreements that the church has signed with current or former members. As a result of her settlement, that information never became public.
It appears that Elizabeth has been in hiding, although she did make a rare appearance recently and gave this speech.
I know that a lot of you have wondered how I'm doing, and if I'm giving up, am I throwing in the towel after so much has happened? You know, after this much tragedy, it's a good question. After so much negative media, after so much loss, and then so much persecution at the same time, all on top of it, you know, what more can someone take? And so I do know that the question is out there, you know, did Elizabeth give up? But you know what, Remnant Nation? I know a little something that the enemies of God don't know. And that is this fact, Remnant, that I never stuck with my mother in starting this church for the praise of man or what man thinks in the first place. So I'm not about to start caring what man thinks.
So there is going to be a scripted series soon, and it stars Sarah Paulson as Gwen Shamblin. Probably the most exciting thing to come out of all of that shit is, if you watch the second half of the Way Down documentary, they got a hold of unaired footage of a reality show that Gwen was trying to develop, and it was called Way Down South.
Go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
I'm Gwen Shamblin, and founder of Way Down Workshop, and then leader and founder of Remnant Fellowship Churches.
I'm actually very moved by it. I follow it
And I try to imitate everything that I can out of her and hopefully pass it down to the next generation, because what she's teaching and preaching and living would change America if they would follow suit.
On this, my third time now staring into the hollow abyss that is Remnant Fellowship, I am really not interested in mincing words. Gwen Shamblin Laura was a monster whose empire was built on top of abuse, manipulation, humiliation, and human suffering. The content of Gwen's teachings was never about anything other than creative ways to spiritually abuse oneself and others into the ideal American body type. At no point in any piece of footage did I see Gwen portray what I would consider to be a positive human emotion. At her absolute best, she could manage a sickeningly sweet kind of performance decency that works in only the most shallow of social settings. And at her reported worst, she was capable of some of the most blatant and obvious cruelty that I can recall. I've dug through this woman's life and catalog front to back, and I cannot find a single quality about her that I would consider redeeming. Maintaining such a tight grip on all the information that came out about her, Gwen seems to have forgotten to leave any room for the kind of humility or struggle that can lead others to find redemption. Gwen's empire was built on the labor of people who came to her for help, but found only verbal abuse, labor exploitation, and relational aggression. And let me tell you, she found the perfect mate in Joe Laura. A shallow, image-obsessed pretty boy with no work ethic and an extreme addiction to the spotlight was a perfect fit for Gwen's overbearing, autocratic approach to relationships. Joe was happy to echo her every thought and maintain the aesthetic standard she desired, and in turn, Gwen allowed Joe to fully flex the manipulative tendencies and extreme ego that had been creeping inside him the whole time. Under their leadership, Remnant has left a trail of broken people, abused children, and ignored promises. The Way Down Workshop empire preyed on the worst parts of the American obsession with weight and used it to avoid scrutiny for years. That is to say that if U.S. culture didn't blindly accept all weight loss as good and correct, this shit would have been shut down decades ago. In their wake, the Shamblin Lauras have left hundreds of broken and manipulated followers, many abused children, and a church that can't survive without the total control of members' thoughts and money. When I call this thing a weight loss cult, I say that because I don't see it as anything else. Body weight is a neutral concept, and food is a necessary means to survival. These things should not be a source of shame, and I like to believe that our culture is starting to see that now. I don't want to even think about whether Michael or Elizabeth are going to take over the church. It is an organization that should have never been created in the first place. And now that Gwen is gone, we should take this opportunity to shut it down and end all of this. Fundamentalist Christianity and eating disorders have both ruined many lives throughout our country's history. For the sake of us all, it's time we at least keep those things separate from each other. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I sure as shit enjoyed making it. The research was crazy. I'm glad that I'm more like confident and love myself this time around during the research, because the first time, whoo! I love you guys very, very much. If I left anything out, I am sorry. There is a lot to cover. I watched the Way Down documentary like 5 or 6 times. It's amazing. You gotta see it. Even if you fucking bootleg that shit, I don't care. Watch it. I have merch available. I updated a bunch of the styles and colors and stuff. And thank you so much to my patrons who make all this possible. That I'm not making a dime off this episode because HBO fucking copyright claimed it. So I pretty much make my living off of Patreon. You guys are amazing. Follow me on social media. Remember to consensually smash that like and subscribe button. It doesn't make a difference now because you're already watching this, but we're gonna start doing our premiere times later in the day. A lot more people can see them that way. And I'm taking a break next week, but the week after that, I do have a new episode for you. And then we have 2 Halloween specials this year. I'm doing Jill Rodriguez 4, and James is doing, I don't want to spoil it, but it's gonna be awesome. I love this time of year. You guys are amazing. Thank you for all of your amazing kind words and DMs and comments and everything. You really make, you make my life worth living. Is that sad? Please read a book, drink some water, take a walk. I love you guys. I will see you soon. Please take care of yourselves. Fuck Gwen Shamblin. Stay in school and party hard. I love you guys, and I will see you later.
Why don't you show them your office, and then Brian can probably figure out where's the best place for them to sit. I'm just saying.